the wire connecting music lovers around the world. You're listening to Aux. Giving you a dose of R&B with the click of the play button.
I'm your host, Deluxe Dave.
Just connecting your cord to Aux.
It's that time again, music lovers. It is your man, Deluxe Dave, here with a brand new episode of Aux. If you are late to the game and this is your first time listening to Aux, you're listening to an R&B music podcast where each and every single week I come here, I talk about music from all shapes, all sizes, all different types of music. And then I like to hear your take on what you thought about the music that I discussed that week. Shows just like this you can only find right here on this network, the CWF network, where each and every week we're bringing you big content in small pieces. I kind of want to know how you guys enjoyed your Valentine's Day. What did you do? Were you by yourself? Were you with that special someone? Did you eat a whole bunch of candy? What did you do? You know, it's always great when you can sit down and you can take time out with either that special someone or just take time to enjoy yourself. That is always a good thing. I got a chance to spend time with a very special someone, and I really had a very relaxing and great Valentine's Day, I must say. It's been a great one. So even if you did not have a special Valentine's with that special someone, I hope you took time out to enjoy yourself, to love on yourself, because that is the most important thing. Because what does the famous RuPaul say? If you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love anybody else? That's the famous saying. But anyway, that is the truth, and I mean that is something that I've learned to really, really live by. That's very, very, very important. So last week I had a wonderful episode that I enjoyed. Also, I got to talk about some of my favorite gospel R&B girl group singers, and it was really great. I even had a friend chime in and was like, hey, I want to jump on, to talk about this too, because he, like me, I find so many cool people on Instagram, like people I've never even met, that always are very engaged and always want to go back and forth about the music and stuff like that. So I hopefully, maybe, if time permits, I can have a part 2 of that episode where I was talking about those girl groups, because I really want to sit down with this special person and kind of chop it up with him to hear his take on some of the groups that I talked about. So maybe we can do a part 2 or something. I've never done a part 2 to any of my episodes, so that might be a cool thing. So anyhow, this week though, this is the very first Did It Age Well of this year. Yes, I have not done one yet, so it is important that we make this one good. And today, I wanted to talk about a name that has not been on too many people's lips. That's because this artist has passed a while back. And this artist's name is Amy Winehouse. Now, I was never, let me tell you, when Amy Winehouse was living, I was never a huge Amy Winehouse fan. Let me tell you why. So basically, they played a song on the radio so much to the point where, my head, every time I heard it, it gave me a headache. So you know how the radio stations, they have that one song that they will play over and over and over, and it gets in your head and you're like, I don't want to hear this song anymore. By the time that they've done played that song to the ground, you're not even interested in listening to a full album by this person. That's how I felt about Amy Winehouse in the song Rehab. They try to make me go to rehab. I said no. It was just played out. It was too much. So I never really had interest in maybe even checking out Amy Winehouse as an artist. And at that time, when this came out, my taste was way, way different back then. I was listening to a lot more mainstream music, and it was very limited. I didn't listen to too many indie artists. I didn't listen to too many artists that were overseas. I was very limited in what I listened to, but it's expanded over time, and I kind of fell out of the mainstream mold because I guess the older I got, the more my taste in music changed. So recently I was sitting down, of course, listening to Tidal and bumping through some things, and sometimes Tidal suggests music, like if I'm listening to a certain genre, it'll suggest or play a song right after an album has finished to kind of get me into, another artist or introduce me to a lot of new types of artists. And now Amy Winehouse is not new, but when I listened to this particular song, it was called Love is a Losing Game. Now, This song is very, very sad. If you sit down and you're depressed, don't listen to this song because it'll get you into your feelings. The song is called Love is a Losing Game. I'm not sure. I guess I relate with it a little bit because when I'm listening to the song, I was like, man, that's very true. You feel like that a lot of times when you're going through something with love with someone and you just feel like it's not working ever. So it was a really great song when I heard it, and it gave me a little bit of Sam Smith, Adele-ish type feel. And I've never been a big Sam Smith or Adele type fan because I don't like to listen to like too sad music, or if your whole album is just sad all the way through, I'm not going to sit down and listen to that. But this album called Back to Black will be 15 years old this year. So that album is 15 years old, and I wanted to hear the whole album after just hearing this one song, Love is a Losing Game. Of course, I skipped Rehab. I didn't listen to it too much, but I went ahead and I played the whole album from front to back, and I fell in love. Like, seriously, I fell in love with the artist Amy Winehouse. So I started to listen to some of the old things, but this particular album, Back to Black, was so different than any of the other things that I had heard. And it was like, I think this album was one of her biggest hits. And it really gives you this old school feel, which I love, but it also gives you a very modern twist. So you'll hear a lot of different things that she says in there sound very modern. It's not things that they would have probably sung about, or they would have kind of disguised it back in the old days. But this gives a more relevant, a more now type feel to the songs. So as I'm listening to this song, and I'm listening to the songs that are on the album, and I'm like, man, I really, really enjoy her. And then I began to read about her story. And I said, man, she lived, I guess, she had her good moments, but I feel like she led a very sad life. And, and that's what I think about as I'm listening to this album, because I feel like throughout the album, she's actually giving you a piece of her. Like, the lyrics are very in sync with her feeling or her story. And that's why I feel like an album like this is very telling. And as I'm listening to the different things in there, and I'm like, man, I am very upset that I did not take Amy Winehouse more seriously when she was alive. And I think this happens many times with many artists. They're more appreciated after they have passed than when they were alive, which is very, very sad. So that's why, like, I did the episode last week about giving these groups these flowers while they are here, and they can hear it, and they're living, and they can know their impact. Because I'm sure at this time, Amy Winehouse didn't even have a clue what her impact after she passed would be. But for the voice that she has is just amazing, because she's giving you soul, she's giving you R&B, she's giving you a bit of jazz up in there. Like, her voice was so unique and so succinct. It was so great to listen to that album. Back to Black really gave me a taste of what I feel like music is starting to become again. We go through these phases in music where we have certain, fads or different things that are in at the moment, but there's always a lasting sound to music, and we always seem to come back around to it as we continue to create music. And people think it's a new thing when you start hearing some of these older type themes start to come into the music, and you start hearing some of those same sounds from back in the day in the music. No, it's just recycled. So what Amy Winehouse did was she dipped into a lot of old music. She had samples of old music in there. Like, there was one song on there that she did that had like Ain't No Mountain High Enough. It had the beginning parts to that. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that beginning part of the song is mixed in with one of the songs on Back to Black. So that's what makes this album so genius. When an album can explain your life like it did in Back to Black, it's always going to be ageless. So we can look back at countless albums that have done that. One that always comes to my mind is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. It tells a story. It tells about her. It's very in-depth. It has so many nuances in it. So those are the types of albums that are always remembered. And this particular one, I knew that I wanted. So me, myself, like I always do, I was like, man, I got to get on this because I don't even have the CD to this. And, you know, I trust digital services, but I want my own physical copies. I still love them. So I went and purchased the vinyl. Now, I did not purchase the US version of the vinyl because when I listened to this album on Tidal, it was not the US version because there's two different versions that came out. There's an additional song that is on the UK version of Back to Black, which has a song that I really loved called Addicted. So I think they take off one of the songs from the US version, which I didn't really care for anyway. So I was like, I'm about to order this from overseas. So I went to Amazon and I ordered Back to Black, the UK version of the album, which has all the songs I love. It had Love is a Losing Game on there. So I was happy with that. So if you love some old school music with some really strong, great vocals, because I don't even know how that voice came out of such a little woman. She had an incredible voice. If you love that, you need to be listening to Back to Black. Give it a chance if you have never listened to it. Now, I might be late to the game because I've heard many people bragged on Amy Winehouse back in the day. Were like, oh, why aren't you listening to Amy Winehouse? And I was the quick to respond like, oh, well, rehab, yeah, God, that made me. And I was making fun of it. But now I regret doing that because I really should have given the album a chance. I might not have liked it as much back then. Who knows? But now that my music taste has changed a bit, I love the album. And Amy has one of those voices that is not of this earth. And I only put certain singers or different types of artists in this category where their voice cannot be duplicated. It cannot be remade. You can't be imitated. There are only certain artists that I can put that stamp on. And Amy is definitely one of those voices that was not of this earth. And sometimes I feel like they've been here. They were able to impart what they needed to in the world. And then they went to where they had to go, to heaven or wherever they believed that they were going. That's where she went. And so I really feel like she was a special artist that was with us for a short amount of time. But in that short amount of time, she left us with so much great music. And that's why I say the album Back to Black, it aged well. And it's going to age well because whenever you start to dip into some of that old stuff or the roots of music up in your album, you know it aged very well. So I'm going to give it that stamp today. I really want to know what your thoughts are on the album Back to Black. Have you listened to it? What do you think about the artist Amy Winehouse in general? You can always call or text the CWF Network hotline at 347-719-3350. I might include your response on the next episode. I would love to start including responses, so make sure you either hit that number up or hit us up on Instagram at CWFP_, or you can directly hit me up, hit me in my DMs, hit me on my page, whatever you want to do, whatever you feel comfortable with. Deluxe Dave, DeluxeDave, and give me a follow while you're at it. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Aux. Remember, there is so much good music out there. The key is to know which song matches the moment. So if I gave you the aux chord, would you know what to do with it? Till next time, holla.
This is the CWF Network, where we bring you big content in small pieces. Follow us on Instagram at CWFP_. Okay, bye.